What's up, people? Look, before we start the show, I just got to say something really quick. Everybody knows I'm really passionate about a lot of things. I'm passionate about my career. I'm passionate about this podcast. I'm passionate about making sure that people live outside the box. Passionate about my family. Passionate about paying off student loans. But let me talk about something that I'm really, really passionate about also. And that's the New York Knicks. And today we found out that my beloved New York Knicks have finally parted ways with Phil Jackson. And, you know, I am very excited about what this means. I mean, I grew up in the mid 90s, or actually I grew up before then, but I grew up watching the Knicks in the 90s. John Starks, Patrick Ewing, Xavier McDaniels, you know what I'm saying? Charles Oakley, dominating folks, giving hard problems to the Chicago Bulls with Michael Jordan and the rest of the scrubs, you know, on a yearly basis. And the transition from that to, you know, the bad years of Allen Houston in the mid 2000s and now 2010 and onward, it's just been really embarrassing, sad. It's a affront to my childhood, you know. So I just want to say really quickly that I'm just really happy that the New York Knicks have gotten rid of Phil Jackson. I know I got some listeners in the New York City area, in the New Jersey area, so you know what I mean, you know what I feel. So I just hope that they get Masai Ujiri and, you know, really start some change. And you know what? Go New York, go New York, go. Back to our regularly scheduled show. This is Docs Outside the Box, episode 27.
Welcome to Docs Outside the Box podcast. This is your official show, looking inside the minds of cutting-edge and innovative doctors. Think you'll find these stories in any medical textbook? Sorry, you're getting real life insight from men and women pushing the envelope beyond medicine. Ordinary doctors doing extraordinary things. Let's start now with your host, Dr. Nee Darko.
This episode of Docs Outside the Box is brought to you by Equal Access Health. Created for doctors, by doctors, Equal Access Health was established with the specific goal of improving a doctor's quality of life, all while providing continuous quality care for patients. We offer competitive rates for doctors and low costs for employers. We're not your average locums company. Besides using the latest in technology, we provide our docs with resources to help manage finances as an independent contractor. Worried about taxes, health insurance, investments, debt payoff, or even savings? EAH has got you covered. At EAH, you're more than just a locum, you're a colleague. To learn more about EAH locums, visit us at www.equalaccesshealth.net or email us at info@equalaccesshealth.net. What's good, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Docs Outside the Box. I am the Doc Outside the Box, Dr. Nee Darko, and I'm bringing you stories of ordinary docs doing extraordinary things. This episode is going to be a good one. This one is going to be fun and dynamic. And I'm going to start by saying to educate, inspire, and entertain. That's the motto of our next guests, Dr. Jamil and Idries Abdur-Rahman. Both are board certified OB-GYN docs. Both practice in the Chi-Town. They both practice in Chicago, which I have to admit is one of my favorite cities, probably maybe top 5. Oh, and by the way, they are twin brothers, not fraternal, but identical twin brothers, and they practice together. And together they combine forces and they form the very popular Twin Doctors TV, which you can find right now. You can subscribe right now on YouTube. And let me tell you, this YouTube channel is so dynamic. It's very energetic. They play off each other. It is something that you don't want to miss. You want to get on it right now. And on their YouTube channel, you'll find various medical topics ranging from the most recent with Beyonce, and you know that she delivered twins, but you'll hear about Beyonce's and Jigga's twins and, you know, prematurity as well as neonatal jaundice. And you'll find other topics that talk about marijuana and breastfeeding. But all in all, you're going to get short medical tips that are going to both educate you as well as entertain you at the same time. Now, prior to this, they were both on CBS's The Amazing Race. That's right. They were on national TV on CBS's The Amazing Race season 22. And you get to hear about their experience on the show and how it inspired them to come back and basically create their own, which is Twin Doctors TV. They enjoy, and they get to talk about how they enjoy actually living a portion of their life in the public and how they like to combine that with traveling. So take those two things, and that's what formed Twin Doctors TV. And I mean, you guys are going to be able to find these people everywhere. They are on Ancestry.com. They have a television ad campaign. You'll find a link in the show notes. They've been on the Tom Joyner morning show. They've been on CBS's popular show, The Doctors. They've been, their blog posts have been in Glamour magazine, the Huffington Post, Self magazine. And now I'm excited to say, and I'm sure they're excited to get out there, that they are regular contributors to the Ed Lover Show as well as blackdoctor.org. So I wanted them on the show, not just because, obviously they're dynamic and we can learn something from them, but it's really important, I think, for you guys to catch people as they're heading on an arc on their way up, right? These two are obviously, they're on the path to being huge in medical journalism. And you never know, based on how they like to combine medical tips and traveling, they may be literally the doctor version of Anthony Bourdain. But I think, taking a step back, it's great to see folks who are on the upward swing towards success. They're still very grounded. You're going to find that they're very hungry, and they're still very much interested in inspiring others to reach success just like they are right now. And as a matter of fact, talking about how hungry and grounded they are, you'll see towards the end of the interview, Idries actually had to leave and deliver a baby. That's how dedicated they are. So before we get into the interview, quickly, they both trained at Rush Medical University Medical School. Dr. Idries, he did his OB-GYN training at Cook County, and Dr. J did his training at Mount Sinai. And, things that I want you to grab from this, things that we're going to talk about, is their thoughts on private practice versus being employed. I think they have a really interesting take on that. We're also going to talk about how they are the first business owners in their family and what kind of pressures and also the pride that brings to them. How they ended up on The Amazing Race also comes up. Other things you'll learn is, look, being brothers is one thing, but doing business is another, and how they're able to manage both without much conflict at all. The other thing, too, is they do a lot of traveling, which you can see on their YouTube channel. And the question is how are they able to balance traveling with a full-time employed OB practice? And they also give advice for doctors looking to be more public with their persona. And obviously, we're going to find out how they answer I'm not just a doc. So without further ado, I present to you Dr. Jamil and Dr. Idries Abdur-Rahman, also known as Twin Doctors TV. Back at it again with another episode of Docs Outside the Box. I'm excited to bring to you the twin doctors, Dr. Idries and Dr. Jamil Abdur-Rahman, both OB-GYN doctors, the famous doctors who've been all over.
Famous and infamous are spelled very closely.
Yeah, I know, right? But no, I am so happy to have you guys on the show. You guys have been on The Amazing Race. You have a commercial on Ancestry.com. You've been on the Tom Joyner morning show, the Ed Lover Show. You've been on The Doctors. You've been on Fox and ABC news outlets. You've been on numerous media outlets. Thank you very much for being on the show. Dr. J, Dr. I, welcome to Docs Outside the Box.
Thanks for having us. Thank you very much for having us. We appreciate it.
So before we get into the nitty gritty of the interview, I want to get to know a little bit about you guys. Tell us where you're from.
So we're from the Chicagoland area, born and raised.
Chi-town.
Chi-town, that's right. Yep. The Windy City. Every winter we wonder why we are still in the Windy City, but we're here. We've been here for the first 40 years of our lives. Hopefully we've got another 40 or 50 to rethink that. But we're from Chicago. That's where we were born and raised, where we practice medicine right now. Both married to two very lovely, patient, accommodating.
I was about to say.
accommodating women, and working as OBGYNs and dabbling in a few other things outside of that, as time permits.
Just a few, right?
Just a few.
Now, what medical school and residency did you both go to?
So we both went to Rush Medical College here in Chicago. And then for residency, I went to, it's called John Strozier now, but it's Cook County Hospital, the ER, the ER hospital.
The county.
That's right. Yep.
And that's Idries. He went to Cook County, and me, Jamil, I went to Mount Sinai, which is literally
light.
We call it Cook County Light. It's about a mile from Cook County, a mile west. Same patient population. We literally even have had patients that he took care of, and then I saw later. And anytime they'd come across the second one of us, they always looked at that person like, how did you get here? And weren't you at county or weren't you at Sinai? But yeah, so I trained there at the pseudo county.
And for those who don't know, you guys are identical twins, right?
We're identical twins. That's right. Yeah. That's right. So we look, exactly alike. And so
not exactly, but similar.
Very.
Right, hold on a second. Who's better looking?
Oh, Idries. I mean, that's obvious, but we don't want to hurt his feelings, so
See, he's very kind and not wanting to hurt my feelings, but he is the better looking one. If you've had a little too much to drink and a little too little sleep.
Yeah, sure, okay.
So you guys are OB-GYN doctors. Obviously, you're still practicing clinical medicine. Is that 100% of time?
We're full time. Yeah.
I mean, clinically speaking, we don't do like research or academics. It's all, clinical medicine. So when we are working, it is clinical medicine. And then, of course, we dabble in other things on the side when we're off. So.
Yeah, but we've been working now together full time as OB-GYNs for
12 years, almost 12 years.
Yeah, almost 12 years now. 12 years, yeah. We were in private practice together for the first 6.5, 7 years, right out of residency, and now we've been employed with the same group for the last 4+ years. So, we've been doing it for a little over 11 years together now.
What was that experience like, just practicing as private practice physicians as compared to employed physicians? Talk to me about
Well, I mean, it's, for us, I guess we didn't have a lot to compare it to because we went into private practice straight out of residency, which I don't know if I would necessarily recommend that, but we did. The joys of private practice were primarily that we were our own bosses. We could kind of do what we wanted to do. Obviously, we had to make a profit, so we were working for the most part, but we could kind of take time when we needed it. The downside of private practice was we were our own boss, and so we had all of the responsibilities that come along with that.
And one thing I would caution people on who are thinking about it, as physicians, we're taught how to be physicians, right? Mm-hmm. But we're not taught how to be businessmen and women. And we made, as a result, a lot of what I would classify as business mistakes, And so that's always something that people need to consider when they're thinking about private practice. But like you said, the joy of being your own boss is I think something that people may not give enough importance to. You just feel like you're accomplishing something, you're doing something. And as an OB-GYN, we've already got horrible hours and a lot of responsibility. But when you were doing it for yourself, for your business, for your family, it made it a little bit more palatable,
But on the proud of, right?
Say that again?
It's like something to be proud of. Like, this is your
something to be proud of.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of literally, we built it from the ground up. We got our office space, got all of our equipment, hired all of our employees, saw the first patient to the last patient. I mean, we literally built it from the beginning.
In 6.5 years, we went from 1 office to 3 offices, going from 1 hospital to 4 hospitals, had close to 6,000 patients. I mean, so we built something, and that kind of gave you that extra little, motivation. You felt like not only have I accomplished something as a doctor, not only am I helping people, making people's lives better, but I've also, accomplished something in the business world. Yeah. And I think for African Americans especially, I have to think about it, but we were probably the first business owners in our family. Probably,
really?
Wow. I mean, we came from a middle class family, and we certainly weren't the first ones to go to college, and we weren't the first ones to be gainfully employed. But I think I'd have to think about it, but I think we were probably the first business owners in our family, and that always feels good. So there's definitely the upside of that, but
then there comes the downsides of private practice as well, and it just depends on the day, honestly. I mean, having been an employed doc now for a little over 4 years, there are a lot of things about private practice that I do not miss. I like being able to kind of go home and unless I'm on call, kind of turn it off. I don't have to worry about how the bills are paid. I don't have to worry about how much is coming in versus how much is going out. So, I mean, there are definitely a lot of benefits.
Don't freak out when you only have 10 people on the schedule rather than 20.
I kind of like it. So, I mean, so there are definitely some perks. The downsides, I think, to being employed really depend on your personality. But I think most doctors are kind of type A. That's why we're doctors, or part of why we're doctors and why we kind of went through this whole strenuous process. And so type A's don't necessarily like to be controlled, and that's always going to be the case. Even if you're a physician that's employed, you're still an employee, and so that's kind of the downside in my opinion. But if I had to give advice, I would say, at least for me now, the upsides are more they outweigh the downsides for me personally.
Yeah, I mean, we have more freedom as employed docs for sure, and that makes it a lot easier for us to do some of the other things that we want to do, like our Twin Doctors TV blog site or the Twin Doctors travel bag.
Because there's no way we could do that in private practice.
No, we couldn't do it. We couldn't do it. Right now, we're employed. We're in a group with 5, kind of really almost
call with
6 other providers, and so we can both take up and go, and it's not a big deal. Whereas when we were in private practice, it was really tough. So I think docs who want to live, a life outside of medicine, being employed is nice.
You just have to find the right situation.
Yeah, the upsides outweigh the down.
So Twin Doctors TV started when you guys were employed.
Well, kind of, sort of. So, it was something that we started thinking about when we were on The Amazing Race or off The Amazing Race. Once we had gotten, eliminated.
Right, let's rewind that. So how did you guys get on Amazing Race then?
Okay, so I'm Idris. I've always loved The Amazing Race since like season 1, and so something I knew that I always wanted to do, but at various points when they were having auditions, it just wasn't the right time. Like my wife and I were having children, or I was in residency, or starting private practice.
And Idris and his wife have 5 children. So they've been having children a lot.
So it just wasn't the right time. And then one year, literally, I was watching it, and it was the day, like the last day that you could send in an audition tape. So I called Jamil, like, hey, let's just do this. And he was like, it's Sunday night. I don't feel like being bothered. I said, let's just do it. So we went to the office, and we filmed the tape. And I got it in within like an hour of the deadline. It had to be in by like 5 a.m. on a Monday morning. And then they called us like later that day, and it's a whole process. You got to go for like phone interviews and actual interviews in LA and fill out this application, go through background checks. But I mean, when it was all said and done, we got cast. So. Yeah, it's just something I wanted to do, and when it was time to do it, I said, let's just do it. Let's go.
And I'll tell you, this is Jamil here. We knew that we had 2 potential Achilles heels. One was swimming. We can both swim, but we're not strong swimmers. And the other was driving a stick. We watched the show and we saw. Well, not well. Well, okay. No, we couldn't at all. Okay, and we had seen previous episodes where they go to Africa or Europe, Asia, most places other than the U.S. and Canada, they're driving sticks. And so we took swimming lessons, and we took lessons to learn how to drive a stick. And the first episode, we
were in LA and we got the clue. Yeah, you're like, you're going to Fiji. I was like, all right, we're going to Bora Bora.
Bora Bora.
I was like, damn.
We knew right then, because we're Muslim and we can't swim. And so we said, what's in Bora Bora? A lot of pork and a lot of water. And so we said, we're either going to have a challenge where we have to eat pork, and we were deciding who's going to do it. Can we not? We knew we weren't going to do it. So we're like, how are we going to get around this? Or we knew we were going to end up in water. And we had a sinking feeling in the pit of our stomachs on the flight all the way over to Bora Bora. And sure enough, first day on the ground, we're in the water.
But we survived the first round.
Yeah.
It was the second round that got us.
Second round got us, but again, it was water, and a fear of jumping in deep water, and it's funny because people have said to us
for the second round.
Yeah, second round. So both days were in the water, but the first day we were able to, because we had to take like a little, they call it a valleja or something. It's like
a traditional Tahitian boat, basically, like a little canoe.
So we were
to build it and
use it. So we were in the canoe, and so we felt relatively safe, and we had life jackets. But the next day we had to do a task that required us to swim underwater to get these pearls out of little clamshells, and we finally got it done, which they never show it, but that's cool. But we finally got it done, but not quickly enough, and so that's when we got bounced. And then after you get bounced, they don't want you going home telling people,
obviously if you're back in a week, they're gonna know what happened.
Yeah, if you're back within a week, they know you're back too quickly. So they send you
sequestered or something like that. Or?
You get sequestered, exactly. So they rented a a little villa in Thailand.
No, it was like this compound with like 6 individual villas. I mean, it was nice. We had our own villa, we had our own pool, we had like,
it was a resort.
Basically, it was a resort, but it was just us there.
Yeah, they rented a resort, and so each team, as they got bounced out, they'd get flown to Thailand, and so we'd all sit and commiserate, and
to hear the sob story all over again. And relive our own shame. But while we were there, though, we were kind of like, we had nothing but time on our hands, 24/7, and we were like, we didn't really think we would like the whole TV experience. We just went on The Amazing Race to do The Amazing Race, But kind of after that, we were like, I kind of like this. I like this, idea of kind of doing something in the public sphere, and I like this idea of traveling. And so we're like, what can we do that kind of incorporates what we do on a daily basis to kind of make that happen? And so that's kind of where both Twin Doctors TV came from and the Twin Doctors Travel Bag.
Yeah.
And once we got back from The Amazing Race, it's totally unrelated, but within like a month of getting back, we closed our private practice. And so a lot of our patients, and we moved, about 100 miles away. So a lot of our patients obviously couldn't follow us, but they wanted to kind of still be in contact with us. And so that's kind of where the Twin Doctors TV came from as well. It's just this way to kind of use social media to stay in contact with old patients and kind of answer questions and provide information.
Because literally patients would, Facebook message message us or email us with questions, and we said, these are things that people want to know. A lot of times they're uncomfortable talking about them maybe to their doctors or, looking straight at their doctors. And they would always say, one thing that I, over time I took as a compliment, but initially it bothered me, was the fact that people would always call, like our patients and even people we work with would always call Idries and I by our first names. They wouldn't say like Dr. Abdur-Rahman or even Dr. Jamil or Dr. Idries. They would just say, hey, Jamil, or hey, Idries. And for the longest time, I felt like it was a sign of disrespect. Like maybe they don't respect us because we look young. Or, feel? Yeah. I felt like maybe they didn't respect us because we looked young, or maybe they didn't respect us because we were black. But then over time, when I would talk to patients, they would say, the reason we love you guys is you're so relatable. I feel so comfortable with you. And I was talking to our mother about it one day, and she said, I don't think it's a sign of disrespect. I think they just feel so close to you, And so, after we left, the thing that people would always lament, they said, like, when I was talking to you guys, I felt so comfortable, and I really miss that. These doctors are so stodgy. And so that's kind of why we said, well, let's do this Twin Doctors TV thing. We can be silly. We can be ourselves. We can be relatable, like people feel we're relatable, but still at the same time be authoritative as doctors. And that's kind of how the whole thing took off. And then from there...
That's one thing I definitely have to say, watching the videos, because I've gone back all the way as far back as 3 years on YouTube with your channel, because your channel is only on YouTube right now, correct?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And one thing I have noticed is that there's a sense of genuineness. There's a sense of just being relaxed. You guys definitely work off of each other, which is amazing.
Yeah.
You guys have an amazing interaction, and you guys are very dynamic on camera.
I appreciate it. I mean, our whole thing is always, you want to be serious, but you don't want to take yourself too seriously. I tell people, I think the doctor that is arrogant, or the doctor who can't laugh at themselves, or the doctor who always has the answer, is the doctor who's not paying attention to what they're doing.
I mean, it's about bedside.
It's not only that.
At the end of the day, you can be the most educated, well-versed physician, but if you present information in a way that patients don't identify with, they're not really going to accept it. They're not going to take it to heart, Whereas if you are more relatable, they relax and they kind of take in the information, and I think they absorb more. So
yeah, I mean, plus, we're all human beings at the end of the day. And I think that if they can look at you as a human being first and as a doctor second, they realize you've got your struggles too. And you're not necessarily talking at them, you're speaking with them. I think they tend to be a lot more receptive. But also, I tell people the doctor who has all of the answers and who's not relatable is the doctor who hasn't been doing this long enough, or hasn't been paying attention. Because the longer I do this, it's crazy that it sounds, the less sure I am of myself, because I've done it long enough to see things turn out one way when I thought they'd turn out another way, or I've been doing this long enough to think that this was the diagnosis, but it turned out to be that. And I've realized that medicine's very humbling, and I think that part of that humility that comes along with practicing medicine is you hopefully can relate better to people and not take yourself so seriously, because I think I'm a smart guy. I think I know what I'm doing, but I know what I'm doing is serious, but I'm also fallible enough that I don't take myself that seriously, if that makes sense. It's serious what we do, and have confidence in yourself, but don't take yourself so seriously that you can't relate to people,
So along those lines, on your website as well as on your videos, at least when your videos start, there's 3 words that say inspire, educate, and entertain. And I see it on your website, I see it on your videos. Is that your philosophy? Can you?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the main thing is to educate. That's the first thing. But again, we've all had those classes where somebody's very smart and they're giving you very important information, but it's just like, it's just droning on and you're dozing off, and so educating is the most important thing, but it's how you do it, and so I think that's kind of where the entertaining comes in. If people kind of laugh and it's kind of somewhat silly, it's kind of humorous, I think they absorb it more, and they're more likely to go back for more and more and more, because it's not just educational, it's entertaining. In terms of inspiring, yeah, I think that especially being African Americans in this country, since we've been here, but especially in current climate, you hear and see less and less positive things about African Americans, about Latinos, about Muslims, about quote unquote others, and then the things that you do hear, they're not positive for the most part. You hear about inner city violence in Chicago, but you don't hear about all the people in the inner city that are trying to change that. You just hear the negatives and not the positives. And for us being African American men, we were raised in a single parent household. We grew up in Chicago, in public schools. I think that we can inspire other people and let them know that, yeah, I mean, you may have these situations, this may be your condition, but you can still do good things. You can do whatever it is that you want to do. So yeah, it's a combination of all. We want to educate you, we want to entertain you, but we also want you to kind of feel inspired when you see what we're doing.
Love that answer, actually. What's your honest opinion on how doctors are portrayed or are actually portraying themselves on TV? So, for example, obviously the easy one is, how doctors are portrayed on dramas. But, I mean, what I'm talking about are like the Dr. Oz's, for example, yourselves, or even, the doctors on the doctors. What do you think about that? What's your honest opinion on doctors who do
Well, I personally love to see doctors on television. Again, we want to be more relatable. And I think that we have to kind of step up and be willing to be authorities when it comes to what it is that we know and what we do. And so I love to see it. The one thing that and I understand why it has to be done this way, but I think that when you see doctors like Dr. Oz or doctors like the doctors on The Doctors or doctors on television in general, you look at them and think, good Lord, these are some intelligent people because they know a little bit about everything, Right. And I think maybe sometimes it gives people the false sense that there's not a lot that goes on behind the scenes, For example, when we do shows, we have to read up and we need to know what it is that we're talking about. We need to know the latest about what it is that we're going to talk about. And we don't all know that. I mean, most doctors now, I'm sure most people listening to this, there are conditions I come across that I know how to treat, I think, but I still always go to my references and look because things are always changing, and I always want to just double check myself, triple check myself. And I think the one thing when you see doctors on television, it gives the appearance that it's easy. And it's not. There's a lot that goes into it. I mean, believe me, Dr. Oz and the doctors on the doctors, they know what they're going to talk about weeks in advance, and they bone up on it and they learn it and they've got just the right answer. But when it looks like it just comes to them so easily, people think that it's easy, and it's not. And so that's the one thing. I mean, I love seeing doctors on television. I love that they're out there, that they're doing their thing and they're authoritative. I just don't want people to look at it and think it's easier than it really is. Medicine's tough, and doctors every day, it's funny. When we were growing up, our mom had a doctor, Dr. Joyner, and she said the one thing that she liked about Dr. Joyner was she would come to him with some problem, and he would say, you know what I'm going to go do now? I'm going to go back in my office and I'm going to read a reference book. So rather than me being, dishonest and saying, let me go see another patient, why don't you just come with me and let's read it together? And so he would literally go get the reference book and he'd look it up and he'd say, okay, so this is what they're recommending and this is why and this is what it means. And she thought that was so genuine, And the reality is that's what we do as most doctors. We go on that computer and, what's the latest recommendation? What's this? What's that? And it's kind of the disingenuous doctor who walks out and says, well, let me go see the next patient. And in reality, they're looking up the information, And I feel like that's sometimes the impression that television medicine gives. You think that it's easier than it is, and it's not,
Okay. Love that answer, actually. Now, being brothers is one thing, but being business partners is another. So for the purposes of business, or just things related to Twin Doctors TV, how do you guys find consensus? Because, I mean, you guys have to differ on certain things. And do you guys find it hard to agree on
we scream and holler.
Yeah.
I think that...
You said we scream and holler, which is true a lot of times.
Well, we do. But I think that, we're similar enough that we can usually come to a consensus once we both kind of calm down and realize that we both can't be right and the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. When we're in private practice, I think that the benefits of working with a family member, with somebody that you're really close to, outweigh the downsides. The benefits are that, it's somebody you can trust, you kind of know how they operate both literally and figuratively, and so that's a good thing. The downsides is that sometimes, I tell him, I think you treat me in a way that you would treat other partners. Like, you just go, if you go and just I'm going to cover your call, for example, you wouldn't do that to somebody else, So, there are some downsides. I think the upsides far outweigh the downsides. It's just a matter of kind of sitting down. What do they say? Let cooler heads prevail. You just kind of stop the yelling, but there's some yelling, but then you kind of stop the yelling, stop the arguing. Let's lay out our case, and this is why I think it should be this, that's why I think it should be that, and let's meet in the middle.
Yeah. And sometimes it's just literally a matter of, if we don't agree, well, we went with your plan last time, so we're going with my plan this time, But we've literally, like I tell people, we're roommates. We've been together from day one conception, so we trust each other's judgment and intelligence enough that we can normally come to some kind of a consensus. And if we can't, we take turns. It's just that simple. Whoever ruled the day last time, the other one rules the day this time.
Now, what about your personalities? Have you guys noticed that there's a difference in your personality on TV, when you're writing versus your personality with your patients?
I don't think so. I think we tend to, what you see on television or what you see on the blog or what you see when you see us in person is pretty much the same. I tell people, and I don't know, if this sounds kind of disingenuous, but the only person I know to be is me, and so I don't like to put up airs. I don't like to
there's no switch that gets turned
on. I mean, so no, pretty much what you see is what you get. We tend to be the same no matter where we are or what we're doing, and our personality is very similar too, which is I don't know if you chalk it up to genetics, if it's nature versus nurture. I don't know if it's genetics or that we come from the same environment, but yeah, we have very similar personalities, and pretty much what you see is what you get, no matter where you're seeing us.
So there's Twin Doctors TV, which is on YouTube. That's basically medical advice in palatable, digestible, 4 to 5 minute type tips.
Right.
Then you have the Twin Doctors Travel Bag, which is your travel blog.
Right.
For example, I've been going through and looking. You guys had a really busy 2016.
Yeah.
How are you guys able to? How does that work? How are you guys able to, travel, blog, do everything that you're doing? How are you guys able to get away from the U.S. and do all that?
Honestly, we kind of, as simplistic as it may sound, we make time for it. So I mean, literally, for example, for 2017, we sat down at the end of last year or at the end of 2016, and we both looked at our calendars, and we literally planned out pretty much our year. So we made sure that we'd have time off around the same time, that we'd be on call around the same time, so that we'd be off around the same time. Mm-hmm. And so we literally sat down, said, this is what we're going to do, and we made time for it. And when we travel, I mean, we sometimes will compress things. Like, for example, we're working on this thing now that we call the Globe on Call, and we envision it kind of being for lack of better terms, a medical travel show, kind of like an Anthony Bourdain, but medicine rather than, food. And
that's what I was thinking when I saw it, actually.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we're shooting for, because he's like the gold standard. When we did our first 3 episodes, we went to, there's only one out right now, which is our episode in Amsterdam and Holland, but we also
the twins.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I'll tell you, that was a tough process too, because we're working with a professional journalist who did our audio and our editing and our video, and we got a lot more than we showed. We only showed 5 minutes, but he's a professional in that regard, and he's like, no, we're sticking to one story, and we're cutting this and we're cutting that, and that's actually tough for us. But at any rate, we went to Nigeria, we went to Holland, and we went to Latvia. And we did all of this in I think 11 day period, and so it's really just kind of like planning and traveling, just like you practice your medicine. You just hit it hard and you don't stop. And so we knocked out 3 locations in 11 days. And so, it's a lot of planning, and it's a lot of being willing to hit the ground running. We went to India last year last year.
I saw that,
and
New Delhi,
and we hit. Yeah, we hit 3 days, we hit 3 cities in 5 days, and so we were just like, we're going. So,
a big part of it also is, I mean, like, we're both kind of travel junkies. Like, our grandparents got us started on travel early,
So we love it.
So we like it, yes. And so you've got to find deals too. And so I subscribe to a lot of websites where they will, give you some great deals. Like, my wife and I went to Paris for like $250 last spring, And so you've got to be somewhat flexible when you find those deals. You got to be ready to go. But a lot of it is planning. We plan the bigger trips in advance, and then the shorter trips is kind of like, hey, I got a long weekend and it's $400 to Hong Kong. I'm gonna go. You just go. You just do it. People are always like, how do you do that? Like, why do you go to Hong Kong for 4 days? Like, why don't you go to Hong Kong for 4 days? You just live your life and just do it.
And I think also for doctors, it's easier because, most people go home after work and they want to chill, and I can't turn my brain off. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna start writing. I'm gonna blog, or I'm like, let's film some today's medical moments, or let's start planning our next trip. I mean, it's just I have a hard time turning off. Like, even when I go on vacation, like I was in New Orleans last week with my family, and I was thinking, like, where can I go and what can I find, what can I find to write a blog piece on, or who can I go film, and I was like, no, I'm not bringing my camera. I'm not bringing my computer. I'm just going to go and spend time with my family. But because my brain is always going like that, I mean, it's hard for me to do that. It felt weird. Like, we'd get to the hotel and I'm like, do I just sit and watch TV now? Like, what do I do? I don't know how to do this.
What do I do now?
And so I think being doctors, we're so like, go anyway, that it's easy for us not to stop because I don't know how to stop. It's funny. I remember as a medical student, I rotated with this gynecologist, and he said he would go out to dinner with his wife and he'd finish his food in 3 minutes, and she'd be looking at him like, what is wrong with you? And he's like, I don't know how to eat at a normal pace now because I'm used to just whipping my food down. Yeah. He said they go downtown, go for a walk, and he's almost jogging, and she's like, slow down. And he's like, this is just how I live my life now. I don't know how not to do it. So I think it's how we're trained, And so we just go. And when we're not, it feels weird to me. It really does.
That's actually what my wife says. She says, you know what, as much as you complain about always being busy, I think you like it. I don't think if you ever retire, I don't think you know what to do with yourself. And, while I have to argue with her, I have to say, I think she's right. I like being busy. When I don't have things to do, it's kind of like, what do I do now? So, yeah.
Now, is there a team for Twin Doctors TV, or just you guys in general? Is it just you guys who are doing the videos? Because you guys have a nice background. I'm sure you guys have a green screen in the back.
I mean,
someone helping with this?
Very small team. I mean, it's basically us for the most part. We've got our social media manager Renee, who helps us with things, and we've got a guy named Mike Bakos, who he's a documentary filmmaker who does some stuff with us, but basically
the on the road stuff.
Yeah, he's kind of like doing the on the road stuff, but beyond that, it's pretty much just us. It's just us.
So social media is handled by Renee Matthews.
Renee Matthews handles a lot of our social media. Yeah, and she's a whiz at it. Like she
was episode 12 for us. We had her on the show.
Oh, did you? All right.
Yeah, no, she's amazing. I've learned a lot from her in that regard, and she gets so upset because when we go we do blackdoctor.org, for example.
Did you Periscope? Did you do this? Did you do that? And I'm like, no, I didn't.
And she'll always say,
don't remind me.
Don't forget to say you're this, you're that, and the other. And I get it so backwards. I'm like, is it FaceTime or what? She's like, just she gets very frustrated, but she's fantastic. I mean, she's helped us expand our reach quite a bit.
Now, obviously, we're both in the same age range. Like, we didn't grow up with social media. We actually grew up, during a time when, you had to make a phone call. You had to call someone, or, Facebook was when we were in medical school, or even before then. So, for example, like Twin Doctors TV, the Globe on Call, that stuff is all on YouTube. Can you talk about the power of YouTube, the power of social media? Do you think it's still viable for docs to kind of separate themselves and make a name for themselves?
No, social media? I don't think it's viable for doctors or anybody else to kind of separate themselves from social media and be successful, I mean, I was one of those people that I was kind of dragged kicking and screaming into social media as well. I remember, for the longest time, I refused to get a Facebook account just because I'm kind of, I guess, contrary, but I refused to do all that stuff because everybody else is doing it. I'm not going to do it, But
sounds like me, actually.
Yeah, but it's like, nowadays, and I feel like I don't represent this to kids, but the kids, they don't really watch TV, So if you want to get across to a younger population, you've got to be on social media, And it's not just that, but they're not used to, when we grew up, you could sit down and watch a TV show for 30 minutes or watch a movie for 2 hours. The attention spans are kind of getting shorter and shorter and shorter. So not only are people not on what used to be traditional media mediums, but they also they want little sound bites, and so you've got to be on social media to do that. You've got to be on social media to kind of reach the younger population, and you've got to be able to do it kind of quickly, When we used to do when we first started doing Today's Medical Moment, they were kind of longish, 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes, and we noticed that our analytics, literally after 2-3 minutes, people were tune it out,
And it's funny,
we got to cut it down, we got to shorten it.
And I talked to a guy, his name is Terry Danuser. He's a senior VP over at Nat Geo now, but he had reached out to us after The Amazing Race, and it was a long story, but really nice guy. And so I would call him and just ask advice sometimes. And so I said, sit down and watch our stuff. And the first thing he said is too long. And I said, really? He said, yeah. He said, too long. He said, unfortunately, we live in a time now where people pretty much, he said, most of their analytics, when they look at their social media stuff, he was previously with OWN and now he's with Nat Geo. And he said that kind of 2-3 minutes is your sweet spot. He said after that, you lose people, and looking at our analytics, he was absolutely right. And so, the thing about social media is it gives people quick stimulation. You can scroll through your page real quick and laugh at this meme and go to the next thing and look at somebody's picture and be outraged and go to the next thing. And so it's what this current generation is looking for. So no, there's no way you can, not be on social media. And that, I appreciate that to an extent, but social media also has its downsides because it's the haven for trolls too,
yeah.
And so you have to be willing to
take the good with the bad.
Put yourself out there and take the good with the bad.
But the beauty of social media also is that you don't need to beg someone to give you a platform.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what? Okay, you don't want to give me a platform? Fine, I'll make a Facebook page. I'll tweet it. You know what I'm saying? I'll go
the
to
original gatekeepers are gone.
Yeah. Sorry, what?
I was saying the original gatekeepers are gone.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the beauty of it. I mean, again, that can be the bad things. People put all kinds of crazy stuff out there too, but that's the beauty of social media. You don't need to ask permission anymore. It's like, okay, I'm going to do it myself. So yeah, it's impossible to be out there without social media, I think.
Now, your work outside of clinical medicine, I'm not trying to get into your pocket, so you could tell me, get your hand out my pocket. But are you guys finding it to be lucrative? Is it worse, similar, or better than the income that you make as a clinical?
Oh, please.
Oh, no, not even close.
Not even close. No,
Not
I
even
mean,
close.
we make significantly more money in medicine now. I think, again, even though the beauty of social media is that you can put yourself out there, there still are certain gatekeepers when it comes to kind of getting it to the next level, So I think like the Dr. Oz is obviously, people like that, obviously they're making way more money, in entertainment than they are or ever would be in medicine. But I think as it stands now, medicine is definitely still more lucrative. But, there's always a day, tomorrow, next month, next year, and things will happen. And I can see getting to a point where, medicine is still lucrative, but you can get a lot more out there that's more lucrative than just practicing medicine. Like I know a lot of folks that are writing books, for example. There's just so many other things you can do out there. So I can see getting to that point, but it's not there yet.
Yeah, that's kind of the goal. The goal is that one day I tell people my goal is I want to practice medicine because I want to practice medicine, not because I have to. Right now, no, medicine is still what pays the bills. It would be nice to get to the point one day where it's
just gravy.
It's gravy, exactly. But no, it's the meat right now.
Well, let me ask. I'm going to take you through a scenario, actually. Let's say, for example, you guys are on call right now. Let's say, for example, you walk outside your call room. Another physician comes up to you and says, "Look, I've seen you guys on YouTube. I've read your blogs and everything, and I'm trying to become a media personality. I'm trying to get to where you're at. But this person is starting at, literally step 0, step 1. What's your advice for someone who wants to get to where you guys are at, or if you want to give someone advice to get on their way, what's the best advice that you would give?
I would say just do it. Like we were saying earlier, you do want to plan to a certain degree, obviously, but you don't want to kind of paralyze yourself until everything's quote unquote perfect. So just do it. But start slow. I think for me personally, and I think just for us as an entity, it's kind of like, okay, I want to do this, and then you get overwhelmed, like I can't do it all, Start slow, kind of start, get a Facebook page, get on Twitter, get on Periscope, get on Instagram, kind of start with that, start locally, if you have patients, tell your patients about it, and then they'll tell friends, and they'll tell friends, and they'll tell friends, and that's how it kind of, grows exponentially. At some point, I think getting a social media manager, a publicist is important, because as doctors, we're super busy and we don't have time to give this all the time that it needs. B, social media managers and publicists have those connections that we don't have, and it's just about getting your face out there. You get your face out there as much as you can, and then you get people that can do it for you as well.
And I would just tell, and I think doctors are used to preparing for the long haul anyway, but just realize that
it's not going to happen overnight.
It's not going to happen overnight, It's been a very slow crawl for us, and it's speeding up a little bit, but still, there's a lot more that we want to accomplish. And it's funny, literally, I would say every year one good thing happens, and so I think our first year out, maybe the good thing was I think we got contacted by Ancestry towards the end of that year, and
I saw that commercial. It's an amazing
exactly, and then we filmed that commercial, and then the next year they asked us to come on The Doctors and to do a few other things, radio shows and things like that. And then the next year we got contacted by local outlets, like we do a show called Good Day Chicago,
Windy City Live.
Yeah, and we do Windy City Live, and Windy City Live we do every month. And Good Day Chicago probably will do every month. They've called us back a lot more, But it's been a very slow crawl, And sometimes, Idries and I, we were talking not too long ago, and we're like, God, I want things to move faster. And then I said, well, you know what? Just take a step back and look where we are now compared to where we were just a few years ago. And there's been a lot of growth, a lot of change, but you feel like you want it to move faster. And so I would just tell people, prepare for the long haul and know that, for every up, there's going to be a lot of downs. I mean, we've been contacted plenty of times by production companies who want to work on this, and this. But then, it's not the right time.
That's what I wanted to ask you about, because I'm sure you get pitched a lot of ideas now. Have you had to learn how to say no?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know that we've ever been approached with anything that I felt necessarily uncomfortable with. And I will say that, thankfully, there's the production company that we're signed with now, and they're actually very protective of us. Like, we'd have kind of powwows with them, and they're saying, oh, we maybe want to pitch this to this network or pitch that to that network. And they'd say, but listen, we're not even going to consider pitching anything to this network, because anything they'd ask you to do wouldn't be something we'd want you to do. And we're not going to pitch this to this network because, they'd want you to, do something that won't represent you well, And so we've never really been put in the position where anybody's asked us to do anything that we weren't real comfortable doing, thankfully.
Jumping into the sea without a life.
Well, touche. Yes, there's that. But that was for $1 million. Right. and I'll tell you, even then, and the reason I hesitated, we both hesitated with that a little bit, was you sign these crazy releases, which of course they have you sign a crazy release to protect themselves, but you can die, your heirs can't sue us, and that's all I'm thinking. Like, I can die, and my heirs can't sue them, and this is some really deep water, So yeah, but other than that, no, we've never been asked to do anything that we weren't comfortable doing. And even that, man, if I had it all over to do again, I would have gotten my butt in that water a lot faster. That was probably one of our biggest regrets. We always wanted to go on that show, and to flame out like that, it was just, oh man, it was tough. He's like, moving on.
I love it. Well, we're getting towards the end of the interview, so I want to ask you some quick, fast questions. You guys game?
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Well, both you guys can answer this, or individually if you want. What's one thing you want listeners to get from this podcast?
I think the main thing is, and as corny as it sounds, live your life. I think that people in general, but especially doctors, we get so caught in this little box, and we don't look out and see what's going on around us. Enjoy your life. Enjoy your family. Enjoy what you're doing. Do those things that you said you'd never do, you really want to do when you're 60 or 70. Do it now. Just enjoy your life.
Yeah, and I would kind of echo that. I was watching, or I was reading something, I don't remember if it was a hospice nurse who wrote it, or it was somebody who's involved with palliative care. And I'm sure it went viral, so I'm sure a lot of people have seen it. But basically, the take home was, I've spoken to a lot of people who are on their deathbeds, and this person said the one thing that, she's always asked, like, what would you do differently if you could do something differently? And she said, the one thing that I've never heard is, I would work more, or I'd spend less time doing what I want to do. And that, when I read that just resonated with me. And, we just turned 40, and I'm probably halfway there. And I'm like, you know what? Life is short, and there's so much that I want to see and do, and just, do it. So if anything, what I would want people to take away from this is, you have something that you want to do, you get out there, you do it, ignore the obstacles, plan, but ignore the obstacles, because there will always be obstacles, and live your life, enjoy your life.
Those are really great answers. I appreciate your honesty on that one.
Yeah.
What can the audience expect from you both in 5 years?
Well, if I have my druthers, and we'll have to see. I definitely want to still be practicing medicine because I love what I do. Maybe a little bit less, not 80, 90 hours a week, but, I still like to be practicing medicine. I'm actually working on some books, both medical and fiction. So I'd like for that to be out there. And then I want you to see our face a little bit more. I'd love to do a little bit more in TV. So,
yeah,
that's my plan.
Yeah, my hope is, we're really trying to do something in the medical travel vein. That's really what we're pitching, that and just the medical advice that we do now. So I'm hoping maybe in the next 5 years, people will look at us and say, oh, those are the black medical Anthony Bourdains.
Maybe get picked up by CNN.
Hey, CNN, hey, maybe that. Hey, I certainly wouldn't say no.
Well, with all that you guys are doing, clinical medicine, being fathers, being husbands, traveling, what's one life hack that you guys are using for productivity, if you're using one at all?
Wow, that's a good question. A life hack. Oh, wow. I don't know that. Yeah, I don't know that I have one, because, when I hear the term like life hack, it makes me think of the one thing that you're doing that's maybe making it a little bit easier. And I guess you can work harder or work smarter. I haven't figured out how to work smarter yet when it comes to this, so I'm maybe working harder. But I don't know that I have one. I don't know that I have one.
Would you guys say having a social media expert or social media manager is helping?
Yeah, well, I guess, yeah, that would be one thing. I would say that having a social media manager certainly makes it easier to streamline a lot of the day-to-day things that don't necessarily come intuitively to us as physicians, So having a social media manager for sure.
What does a social media manager do? Just for the educational purposes of our audience. What
so basically, she manages all of our social media accounts. So she, for example, we'll kind of create the content, but then she'll put the content on the various forums. She'll make sure that it's getting put out there multiple times. She'll ensure that we're engaging with the viewers. So, for example, if somebody has a question or a comment, she'll send it to us, and then we can respond. She looks for opportunities for us to, further promote ourselves, be it doing your podcast, for example, or be it doing radio shows in the area, things of that nature. So she really helps us put ourselves out there. that's the main thing. She's more a social media manager. That's her official term, but in many ways she functions like a manager.
Yeah, I'm looking for one right now, actually, too. So that's why I asked.
You can't have her. No,
all right. Well, knowing what you know now, let's say you got a chance to put the retrospectoscope on, whatever you call it. You got to have some hindsight. You got to get into a travel machine and travel back to when you were in medical school, or even before that. What's one piece of advice you would both give yourselves as pre-meds or even as medical students?
Wow. I would say, for me personally, this is Jamil. The one piece of advice that I would give myself, if I could, speak to myself as a med student or pre-med, I think that one piece of advice would be to recognize that being a doctor is a profession. It's not a lifestyle. It's not it's not your only goal in life, for lack of better terms, because obviously pre-med and med, that's pretty much your only goal, right? To get into medical school and then to get through medical school. And so you so easily can get caught up in that and miss the forest for the trees. And so I think I would tell myself, remember that you are embarking upon a job that will be one part of who you are, but it shouldn't define who you are. That would be my one piece of advice. And of course, we're here on labor and delivery now, and Idries just had to run out and deliver a baby. So what would he say? He really did. So let me think. What would he say? I have no idea what he would say. Probably he would reiterate. He would probably reiterate what I said. But that would be my that would be my advice to my past self.
See, that's amazing, because I always try to I always want a sense of authenticity. So, I mean, there's nothing more authentic than doing an interview.
He literally had to run out and deliver a baby.
Love it. All right. Well, here's the last sentence that I'm going to present to you. It's a sentence. It's a hashtag that I present to all my interviewees.
Okay.
It's called hashtag I'm not just a doc, I'm a, and it's a sentence. It's a statement where you get to say, yeah, I'm not just a doctor. I enjoy a whole bunch of different things. Some of the things that my previous guests have said are world traveler, which I'm sure you guys can relate to. Some people say mom. Some people say entrepreneur or doctorpreneur. So this is Dr. J, who's still on?
Still on, yep.
Okay. So I present to you, I'm not just a doc. I'm not
just a doc. Let me ask you this. Is it just one descriptor?
Do whatever you want. This is you.
All right.
Do what you want to do, man.
All right. I'm not just a doctor. I am a studio media personality, world traveling, life living student of the universe. How's that?
Love it. All the slashes in between. I love it, man. I appreciate the genuineness and the honesty of that answer. So
anytime.
Thank you very much. So Dr. Jamil and Dr. Idries, I know he had to step out.
He's delivering a baby, yep.
Hey, listen, this was an amazing interview. Thank you very much for being on the show. And I just want to take a quick second just to acknowledge you both for what you're doing. I mean, I think what you guys are doing is mind-blowing. It's genuine. You guys have an amazing dynamic. I appreciate what you guys are doing, helping the public on a macro level, right? I think oftentimes we as doctors get so caught up on helping people within the hospital, but there are so many different ways that we can help people. So being able to do that with your medical tips and, helping physicians who are interested in traveling, I think what you're doing on a macro level is that much more impressive also. So I just want to acknowledge you both for that. Continue what you're doing, and I can't wait to see what you guys do in the next 5 years.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And thank you for having us. I mean, anytime we have an opportunity to speak with a colleague, someone who's out there doing more than just medicine, out there living life and exposing people to the different opportunities that exist, it's always an honor and a pleasure. So thank you for having us.
And that's a wrap. Episode 27 is officially over. I really enjoyed this episode. I sure as heck hope that you did also. Remember, you can learn more about Dr. Idries and Dr. Jamil on twindoctorstv.com. Once again, that's twindoctorstv.com. Or you can find them on YouTube, on their YouTube channel, Twin Doctors TV. If you enjoyed this show, hey, go ahead and tweet me a picture of you listening to this episode and send it to me on Twitter at DocsOTB. That's at DOCSOTB. Remember, if you want to continue to listen to and get great episodes such as this one, remember to subscribe on iTunes or your favorite Android podcast app for more great upcoming episodes. And you know how we normally end this. Look, we only got one life. Let's make it count. And remember to live outside the box.